because he was part of that. But they are so deep at those skill positions that Curtis Samuel and other guys are going to be able to step right in and pick it up where Dontre Wilson left off.
Yeah, for sure. Shame to hear about that. He may be able to get back, depending on what the end of season scenarios are for the Buckeyes there, but he's definitely done for the regular season there. Offensively too, there was another one, at least one or two left on the board. I remember Wilson dropped that touchdown near the goal line there, and at first you thought it was defended. Then you saw the replay and you go, oh, man, he just dropped it. He had it right in his hands there. I'm not sure. Was he already injured at that point? Because I hadn't actually confirmed where he got injured, just that he did get injured during the game. And, sometimes especially when it's a break like that, you don't necessarily come out right away because the adrenaline, you don't necessarily realize that it's affecting you. I was just curious if he was already hurt, but because he had the fumble. Yeah,
too, I don't know that whether when exactly he injured the foot.
Yeah, me either.
But the other thing was that the Buckeyes won in spite of trying to shoot themselves in the foot numerous times. I mean, they dropped the one punt. There were Michigan State was seemingly getting every break. They fumbled the ball 2 or 3 times, and the one time Tyvis Powell, the Buckeye safety, looked like he was trying to scoop it up and run with it, where he should have just dove on it, and Spartans ended up coming up with that one. 1 or 2 other fumbles that rolling around on the ground, opportunities for Ohio State to pick them up, and Michigan State ended up, I don't believe they lost a fumble the entire game, and I believe they fumbled 3 times. So, again, talking about what could have been, what might have been if the ball bounces a different way, and really they gave up the one touchdown is attributable to the muffed punt. So it could have been a lot worse even, but as it turned out, to win going away like that and win by double digits in East Lansing certainly will get the committee's attention, and really maybe let's just go to that. I mean, the AP has the Buckeyes ranked number 8 this week, so you beat number 8, or in one poll number 7, where Michigan State was, and that's a way to move up in the rankings. And when you go to their place and you beat them convincingly on national television, then you have a chance to not only move up a little bit, to maybe replace where they were, and that's what it looks like is going to happen. Buckeyes are going to move up probably to 8 when the committee makes their call tomorrow night.
That's what I was thinking.
But the AP poll has them in there at number 8, so I suspect that the committee will have them right in that same general area.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. About the same jump that they made would probably be the same one that they make there in that poll. You're talking about some of the things that Michigan State had going for them. Langford, I just got to mention, because I had my notes from the game, and I'm like, man, I mean, not that you didn't know before the game, but, man, he's a running back, that's for sure. Love watching him run the ball. He averaged nearly 8 yards a carry the other night. He was taking out chunk. When that game was still back and forth there up until you got into the second half there, and it started, Buckeyes started pulling a stretch away a little bit, man. I mean, every time they needed to come back, you would need a defensive stop. Here would come Langford with a nice run, whether they needed a first down or a big run or whatnot. He was doing well. And Elliott, too, like you said, I thought they would early on lean on him, but it was kind of the opposite effect there. But, man, he had a great game, too. $154 on the ground. And Michigan State hadn't allowed one 100-yard rusher all season. And between Barrett and Elliott, there was actually, I think Barrett ended up slightly short of 100 total. But
right, I think
still,
he had 86 rushing yards. Yeah,
but it was close enough. Yeah.
Lots of people, including some of the Buckeye writers, as I follow, my friend Marcus Hartman from BuckeyeSports.com was one of them, who really just was sort of scratching his head how you saw it. After the game was tied 14-all, and Michigan State took the kickoff, and they just marched right down the field, and really it looked like they were trying to send a message that, hey, you can't stop our offense, and they drove it right down, and Humphrey was very strong, and Mumphrey as well. They stuck it in the end zone, and I thought to myself, man, that's just deflating as all hell. That's a statement right there. And it turns out they got the ball back, and a couple of key plays in that game. I mean, you can point to about 2 or 3 plays. Obviously, the one was the holding penalty on the touchdown run that would have put them up 2 touchdowns, 28-14. Instead, they have to give up the ball. First play after the Buckeyes get the ball is a 79-yard touchdown pass to Michael Thomas. who broke away from a defender and went the distance. So instead of being down 2 touchdowns, it's a tie ball game, all in the space of a couple of plays. Antonio mentioned it at halftime. The other huge one, obviously, was when J.T. Barrett's got 3rd and 23 down by his own goal line, and he somehow hits Devin Smith down the right side, and Smith makes a nice over-the-shoulder catch, and they pick up the first down, move it on down and score, and that couldn't have been any bigger. So there are a couple of big plays like that really turned the tide. But then in the second half, it just became the inability of Michigan State's defense to just hang with what Ohio State was doing to them, hitting them too many different ways, too many different directions, and J.T. Barrett just too sharp, throwing the ball, running the ball, picking up key 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, running the ball, even when it was predictable, even when it was, okay, Barrett's going to take the snap and just run a quarterback draw here. Even the 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, they couldn't stop it. And he's strong. He's a tough kid. He's a little bit thicker than Braxton, a little bit more durable, a little bit more of a tough runner, and in terms of getting some inside tough yards. And he's hard to bring down on the first tackle. Same with Ezekiel Elliott. And Ezekiel Elliott never goes down on the first hit. It's just a pleasure to watch that kid run. And he's a great kid, they say, on top of being a heck of a talent. So good to see kids like that succeed.
He's a hell of a running back. I liked watching him. J.T. Barrett, we're talking about him a little bit. I'm looking at some of his splits, man. And it's so funny when you look at the season log as a whole, just how much of an outlier that Virginia Tech game is. 9 of 29, 31% passing. You know what I mean? Touchdown, 3 picks. When you look at every other game, it's that one just is the one that stands out in any category you're looking at from the rest. And it's what lets you know that it's an anomaly rather than the norm. But something I noticed with this splits, and of course you've got Navy tossed into this grouping of away games, so there's a little bit there. But when you look at his splits, man, he's actually better in most categories away than at home, which to me is the sign of a quarterback that can focus. His completion percentage is 5 points higher than it is for the season on the road. It just, yards per average, things like that. Just, it shows that they've got that ability to focus when you've got all the distractions on the road, especially when you realize the last 2 have been Michigan State and Penn State, both very tough environments. I thought, wow, that just kind of stuck out to me. I said, wow, that shows me a guy that can, we use the word compartmentalize. I mean, even his rating on the season, it's 20 points higher away than it is in told for the season. Shows the ability to focus and being above his years, as we've already seen with what he can do on the field.
Yeah, no doubt. And what's been said about J.T. Barrett ever since he was in high school was what a cool customer he is and was.
Yeah.
That calm, and that's what everybody that's around him says. You see him on the sidelines, even he kind of exudes calm. And in the pocket when he drop backs to pass, he's not happy feet kid. He certainly doesn't look like a freshman. He goes through his reads and delivers the ball even with pressure coming at him. So yeah, just a cool customer. As far as Virginia Tech game goes, I put that game completely on the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer and Tom Herman and as well as the defensive guys lost that game for Ohio State. J.T. Barrett didn't. And here he is playing his first home game ever in Ohio Stadium, 105,000 people. And they didn't have him ready. Obviously, you got to sympathize with their problem. They didn't know that J.T. Barrett was going to be starting about 3 or 4 weeks before that. They weren't trying to get J.T. Barrett ready to play Virginia Tech on September 9th or whatever it was. It was Braxton Miller was supposed to be their quarterback situation to get him ready to go. But the bottom line was they weren't ready for what Virginia Tech threw at them that day. They could play Virginia Tech, 25 times and win 25 right now. I'm convinced of that on any field. But that night was just sort of the perfect storm, and Buckeyes win that game, and we're sitting right now at number 3 in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It's the outlier. But you got to keep playing what's left. That's all you can do. You can't play what if. Maybe you can do that in the offseason, but there's nothing you can do about it. People said, oh, well, Buckeyes ran that streak 5 straight or 4 straight with the 50 points, 5 out of 6, and all of that. But look at who they played. I mean, who said they were going to drop 50? I know it was 49, but who said they were going to drop half 100 on the Spartans and that 5th-ranked defense right there? So
Yeah, that's right. That's one of those little truisms that everybody's been saying all year long that now has to be sort of set up on the shelf, and that is, but the Buckeyes haven't done it against a defense as good as Michigan State. Well, okay, now they have. So shut up.
Say what you will defensively, but offensively, they're legit. That one has been answered for sure,
Absolutely, yeah. The defense still obviously work in progress, but they are coming around too, and they did not give up the huge play against the Spartans. There were a couple of long runs, but for the most part, they kept the big play from happening and didn't allow the long touchdowns, and got tougher and tougher as the game went on.
Bucks just have to win out and then see what happens. As we see each week since they've started the college football playoff, one of the polls, one of the top four has lost. So as long as that pattern continues, the Buckeyes can maybe find themselves sliding up in there before it's all said and done. Of course, who they end up with potentially in a title game could also affect that as well. Hopefully it's as high a ranked team as possible. They've got last road game of the season coming up this week with Minnesota before you get the final two at home, and then you've got Michigan to end things. We'll preview Minnesota coming up this week, but I'll tell you, and another ABC game too. Noon start this time after a couple of prime timers. We'll see what they do in the polls. I'm with you, Dan. I expect Ohio State, we said it last week, to kind of flip-flop with Michigan State. You got to figure number 8 is the most likely landing spot for them, and we'll see how the poll shakes out here and maybe we'll start looking ahead to what the path is, to who needs to start dropping over the next couple of weeks for the Buckeyes to keep climbing, and of course they've got to win along the way. So Wednesday, Minnesota, we'll look ahead, we'll know where the Buckeyes are in the polls, and we'll look ahead up this week. And Wednesday will be, is Wednesday MVP, no, Wednesday's the Cy Young, and then the MVP award is the next day. So Wednesday, we'll talk a little bit about that too. Corey Kluber. I got an email from the Tribe. They've got a ton of media stuff going on here coming up, both on the 12th and the 13th with Corey Kluber and Michael Brantley, with both of them being up for the awards. They're doing Twitter Q&As and conference calls and social media contests. Indians got all kinds of stuff going. Yeah, 6 p.m. Wednesday is the Cy Young, and then Thursday, 7 p.m. And both of those guys are going to be the featured guests on MLB Network during the announcement shows, too, both Brantley and Kluber. So that's kind of cool. So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about on Wednesday, Dan.
Sounds good. We'll preview Minnesota. The only thing that could have happened any better over the weekend was that LSU had been able to hang on against Alabama. Now we're looking at, Alabama still has to play Mississippi State and Auburn, so they got a chance to get knocked out of this thing. That's one thing I really want to see happen. But it would have been a lot easier if they'd had a loss hung on them by LSU, because then they could go ahead and take down Mississippi State. Auburn's effectively out of it, I think. But
Auburn knocked out.
Yeah, I'd love to see. There's still a possibility, Jerry, that what I said a few weeks ago, that we might end up with every single SEC West team with 2 losses. That could still happen.
Ahead, yep.
If Mississippi State loses to Bama and Ole Miss, something that's not out of the question at all, so we could end up with that, and could end up with a 2-loss SEC team in that Final Four, and people would be screaming all over the country. But I still think there's a chance it happens. We'll see, and check back in on your Wednesday. We'll know by then what the committee thinks about our Buckeyes.
Hey Dan, real quick, because I didn't watch this game, and I'm looking at the scoreboard here. Wasn't that Oregon-Utah game a hell of a lot closer at one point? Like, wasn't the Utes giving them a run for a minute, and then they end up losing 51-27? Weren't the Utes in that thing?
And the big thing, of course, that happened, Jerry, was early in the game. Utah's already up 7-0. They have a 79-yard touchdown pass where the guy drops the ball before he crosses the goal line. On the 1-yard line, he's celebrating with his teammates in the end zone, and it should be 14-0 Utah. And the Oregon player picks up the ball and runs 100 yards back the other direction, and all of a sudden it's 7-7 instead of 14-0. And that really set if Utah's up 14-zip, maybe they still lose. Oregon did put 51 points on them after all.
Right.
But that game should have been 14-zip instead of 7-7. It was one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen in college sports, where the guy clearly just let go of the football as he's cruising across the goal line, let go of it about the 2-yard line, and it drops, outside the goal line, and he's celebrating his touchdown while the Oregon guy's heading 100 yards the other way. So that was the big turning point in that game. It happened very early, But yeah, that game too was tied, I believe, at 17 or
something like
14 or whatever.